Okay, I'm recording, Edgar, so you can unmute yourself and take it away.
Alrighty. Um, so can everyone hear me? I hope so. So my name is Edgar Pejaza. For those of you that don't know me, I work in the Takeoff group up in Fremont, and I'm going to be teaching basically a quick little mock-up takeoff overview. And for those of you that haven't watched Pedro, Yana, or Chris's training videos already, I would really recommend going to the portal under the engineering page and watching those, because basically the mock-up process is just a scaled down version of that. So with some little changes here and there, and hopefully I'll be able to convey those changes so that everyone can see the process basically. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and start. But also, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write a question down in the chat. Bill's gonna be moderating me, so he'll bring it up at an appropriate time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so here we go. So first off, the different types of mockups, at least I've seen, come through our group. So I've seen visual, performance, UL mockups, STCs. So visual and performance are basically what I'll be going over, but UL and STC, it's the same process, just different certifications that we require. Visuals are standard parts. They are on hand, and we just pick and pull whatever we need. Performance, they're job specific parts. So we have to order it and just do our best to create a stable base, and then our group will continue to build off of that towards the job. Okay, so visual mockups. So here's a UCI SCB visual mockup. So each one is set up in a different way. So we use standard visual mockup parts, like I mentioned, and we have the metal already on hand, ready to be pulled at standard lengths of 24 feet. And then right above here, we have a 1100 Broadway, and that was set up on a little trailer hitch down on, I believe, Shop B. And then we have 510 Vermont. So another thing with visual mockups is they can also contain job parts. So when we set up visual mockups, we also want to take that in consideration, because for the job, prototype units might be, people who work on those prototype units might look at those visual mockups or the performance mockups for sure, and try to build things off of that and carry as much information from these mockups to the job. So performance mockups use job specific parts. I couldn't find out which jobs I pulled these from, but here's one that's getting water tested, and they can be tested for the following: air infiltration, static water, dynamic water penetration, and structural deflection. So, and like I said, we try to carry as much information from these PMUs or VMUs with job parts over to the job. And then here's I think this is O Street being tested out there. And okay, so a comparison between mockups and jobs. So in a job, there's a pallet schedule, which mockups don't have, prototype units, metal and miscellaneous takeoffs, class takeoffs, and fab. So each of these processes and steps gets handled possibly by a different project engineer. So there's a lot of work that goes into building up to that job. And for mockups, there's a chance that nobody's touched it before the project engineer that's going to start on it. So that means that you have to start from the ground up, build the takeoff program, build the units, build the field use, and possibly build any brake shapes and anything of the sort if there's not no other resource available at that time. Okay, So an important thing to note is where those files that you need to start off are located. So if they're in the LA, if it's an LA job, are the shop drawings in the LA server? Are they in the J drive? Is there a Bluebeam session already set up for it? And if there's any doubt on where those files are located, the most up-to-date current, sometimes there's more than one mockup for a job. So I always talk to them at my PC, or maybe even reach out to the drafter just to see where all the latest and greatest information you need to get started is at. Okay. So you would always want to review the shop drawings just to know if it's for sure a VMU, PMU, or even a mock-up using job parts. And a way I always go about to double check that is under the J drive, there's a visual mockup standards detail PDF sheet. And when I open the shop drawings for the mockup I'm working on, I always compare those details, because that standard details PDF contains all the parts that we have on hand that can be pulled and used and mitered or cut to fit the mockup that we're trying to make. And if that part isn't on there, then we need to let the PM know, because it's not a part that's already on hand, and they'll have to go about ordering that part. Okay. And for project setup wise, so building off the Takeoff program, we always want to start off in the J drive. So at least for us up in Fremont. If it's in the temp folder, you make a temp folder under the mockup_visual or mockup_performance tab. Or if it was another type of mockup, you'd put it under the appropriate folder structure. So these two are already made, and when a Takeoff program, when the folder structures basically are already set up for the job, these should already be located in there. All you need to do is paste the Takeoff program in there, or create a Takeoff program, I should say, and it'll create all the appropriate folders for you. Okay. And then, so starting off, building off the Takeoff program. So you always want to start off with a fresh, clean Takeoff program. You never want to copy a Takeoff program, because it might have other information, other units, other markups already used, details, glass, all that stuff could potentially carry over. And we don't want that. We just want to start with a clean slate and set up all the project information. So as you can see in the far right snippet there, you're going to put the job name, job number, default drawing directory, and then make sure the bottom at the 3, 4, 5, make sure those are either checked or unchecked based on the mockup. And then the next thing you're going to do is create the releases. So there's four different releases that we'll end up making. There's metal, miscellaneous, glass, and fabs. So it's always a good idea to double check with your PC or even the PM and see what they need. Sometimes if we're stretched on time, glass is already taken care of. But for sure, metal and miscellaneous, we always typically do that, and fabs, of course. So we always set up for these four different releases. And to do that, we need to set up the areas and the releases. So in the Takeoff program, there's a little area, you hit areas, and it allows us to filter for the units that we want and the material that we want. And for the releases, we just select that release, and all we have to do is filter for those units that we want, and then it'll automatically let us generate either the metal Takeoff, glass, keys, anything that we need. Okay. And the last two things actually are setting up the distribution info. So if there's multiple floors, is there shop use items, we need to set that up just so the program knows that it's on what floor, if it's shop use or whatnot. And the last thing is making sure we have the correct shop monitor system. we don't want to use general task. We always want to reach out to Vince Polymus right now as the go-to person to create the mockup shop monitor system. If there's sometimes other shop monitor systems in there, but we always want to use a mockup monitor system. And then since mockups aren't palletized, we go about creating unit keys on the elevations. So here's just a little quick little video of how we go about doing that. So I'll go ahead and play it. So we set up a text command and write out the unit that we want to start off with. So it could go from top left to bottom right. Either way we want to set it. We just want to make sure that it is clear and legible for everyone to know, okay, this is unit 1. So this is unit 2, this is unit 3, and this is unit 4 for this particular mockup. That way, everyone knows without a shadow of doubt what fab you're creating, and there's no confusion. So we go ahead and hit EST and K for keys, and it produces this red color to our unit keys, so we know for sure that it is set up for that unit key. And then I'm just copying each one down, and then I'm going to go ahead and manually change each unit to be whatever I want it to be. So I wanted the top left one to be 1, top right to be 2, bottom left to be 3, and bottom right to be 4. And then after that, all we have to do is UPD, and that's it. Okay. So, and the project setup for the unit and the units, excuse me. So we have different ways of grabbing information. I've created a standard visual mockup takeoff program that I've basically been building and working off of since I started building mockups. And as you can see on the description there, I have just a little note on what job I've used it on. For that, for instance, that top one, 1552, I've used it on 279 East Grand, 3181. It's been a long time. I don't remember what job that is, but I use it on 3 different jobs. So I'll reference that if I need that particular use or that detail. Or if I don't have it already created, what I'll also do is look for other mockups that I possibly worked on or someone else has possibly worked on, and continue to build off of that, and just grab that information. And if no other information is available, we'll start from scratch. Okay. And so the release process. So as the unit fabs are being checked with metal, glass alongside them, what I'll go ahead and do, and I believe we do this for the job as well, is I'll go ahead and check my own miscellaneous. So I'll create a little snippet of the general note sheet and go through each one, marking it off if it's on the shop drawings or not. Sometimes there might be a fastener missing, a setting block missing, or something. Or maybe I included something on my miscellaneous that's not on the general note sheet. So I'll write a little note on there letting the PM know, if they were to look at it, that this is why I added it, it's on this detail, and so forth. And for the release process, since I have quite a few times. Yeah, oh yeah, I have a lot of time. So I'll go ahead and show the steps on doing the metal order and possibly the glass, and even the fab, since there's a lot of questions that whenever someone else happens to work on the mockup, I do get asked. That way it's all clear, we're all in unison here. So let me go ahead and minimize this and open up my Takeoff program. So right now I have the standard visual mockup data that I have open, and I will go ahead and work on on a different job actually. I'm gonna open up Google Gibraltar, which is one of the last mockups that I've worked on. Let's see. Give me one moment, please. And then open. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the metal takeoff. So for metal takeoff, what we'll do is we'll filter for all the units and field use for mockups. For mockups, we're always going to be releasing the units and the field use as one package and one shop work order. So to go about doing that, we're going to filter for all metal takeoff, which is already set. I'll go ahead and under elevations, and I'll go metal takeoff. Make sure these are checked here. Show metal takeoff, and metal takeoff. And then we should see these filter there, just like so. Then I'll have to optimize for all the cut sizes. So I'll hit optimize and create, select takeoff and original for the optimization style. And one thing to note while we're doing this, you always want to make sure we have the correct stock link sizes here. For Google Gibraltar, it has, as you can see, GGB-9901, 902. It had job specific parts. So for that job, we use different stock link sizes. If not, they would all be 288 unless there was some angle or other material that we would have to order, which would be the standard stock link sizes. So after we do that, we hit OK. OK. And then we have the extrusion optimization total list here. Exit out of that. And then after that, all you do is create your metal order. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Export metal order form right here. And save it under the appropriate tab. And there we have it. And we would also create a metal takeoff form to Excel. And those are the only 2 items from the takeoff program that we'll create. Other than that, we'll do key sheets and so forth. And then for glass, it's just like a job. We would run the glass totals by elevation. So I'm going to filter for the release for glass, and then go ahead and change in the elevation info for the glass release. Glass. Do the same over here. Glass. And then print out the glass totals by elevation. And there's the 2 units that we have. And then print out the export glass form to Excel, just like so. And then I saw a question pop up. I thought we were supposed to have, so this is a question from Heather. I thought we were supposed to have all mock-up material ordered at a length of 24 foot, regardless if stock part or not. So that's a good point. So what I kind of heard very multiple things on that. I've heard that some parts like angles, for instance, we order it from the normal stock length size.
So Edgar, strictly talking about like what custom extrusions would be, not the miscellaneous extrusions.
Okay, then yeah, then it would be all 24 foot. Okay, and So yeah, and then so going back to the glass, then we go ahead and save the glass for order form in the appropriate folder and with the appropriate title, as you can see here for Google Gibraltar. And the last thing I would show you guys is the fab process. Just at the end when we create shop work orders, since all the shop work orders should be on one work order. So we're gonna go ahead and create shop work orders down here. And to do that, what we're gonna do is instead of having multiple pages, as you can see, there's up to 42. We're gonna set those all to just page 1 and create work orders. That way, it's all in one shop work order and not on multiple sheets. And other than that, that's the process. So if there's any questions, anything anyone would like to add to it to hopefully improve this process, I'd love to hear it.
So Edgar, can we talk a little bit about the visual mock-up system? You did mention that there's a specific set of drawings that you use. So do you have that available? Maybe we could look a little bit at that system and do some comparisons on how that is similar but very distinct from using actual job parts.
Sure thing. So here we go. This is it right here, the standard visual mockup standard details. So as you can see, even from the head here, we have this little alligator clip part, and all of it is just to mimic the actual job conditions, even though we might not use this part for the job. So we'll just go ahead and go through each detail and see the differences. So here we go, all pretty typical other than this sill here, the same as that head. On both conditions here, we have that alligator pressure adapter, pressure adapter.
So let me point out a few things. Go ahead and go back to that previous sheet. The regular job material has isobars built into it, and that's a limiting factor on being able to paint materials after they've been gone through the extrusion process. So we developed the visual mock-up system with a specific set of parts that we could stock. All of the mock-ups are done in the Laverne shop. They're close to certified there so that we can send the fabs to their shop. They can actually get the material gathered, sent to certified, painted, brought back to their shop with a very quick turnaround. So we developed the visual mock-up system to be able to mimic the look of our W75 system, because in our previous iterations, we were always doing things like tubes and angles and channels and ripping parts, and it was really inconsistent, the results that we would get out of that. So we wanted to be able to use something that simulated the look and the size and our approach for doing how the real W75 system works, but we had limitations from the actual parts of the W75 system that in order to create that quick turnaround cycle, we needed to be able to generate these as parts that we could paint without having that isobar in there. So that's how this system came about, where it's got these little adapter pieces, for example. You'll notice that the horizontal parts are basically the pressure plate with the beauty cap on it. And because mock-ups come in various sizes, we just took that standard 24-foot stock length size, and that's the base. That's what we stock in the Laverne shop. The The visual mock-up also has a Swiss on the portal that governs all of the steps that the PMs go through in order to develop what the shop drawings do, how it translates into takeoffs. One of the improvements that's been made over the last couple of months is now all visual and performance mock-ups are added into the production matrix so that we have those triggers of when they should be coming up, when we need to start working on them for material takeoffs, and fabs and releases to the shop as well. So all of those things have been improvements in how we do our mock-up systems. Okay, so you can continue scrolling through the details to kind of show some of the similarities to the W75, but also pointing out some of the things that are unique to the visual mock-up system.
Okay. Looks like we have a pretty typical head and soft condition here. And once again, using that, that part there. And as you can see, that part's basically used as all the conditions, horizontal, verticals, and so forth.
So there on the detail 3, one of the ways that we wanted to be able to create the look of a job, but in a very fast turnaround cycle. Sometimes jobs have an extended cover on them. So we simulated a method to be able to show what an extended cover might look like. In this case, we are just attaching these brake shapes with fasteners to the vertical cover. We have the similar thing on the horizontal covers. If we need to show them, we create these with, we can do sharp corners. So we can do that compressed corner so that it mimics the look of an extrusion. And if that's the case, then we need to look at the timing of these as well so that we make sure that the painted brake shapes get painted at the same times the extrusions do. Because it's a smaller batch of material, we want to send it through to the vendor and get it painted and get it back to the shop all at that one pass through the painter. And then Jana's got a question up there.
Okay. Let's see. Do you tag the glass on the units or on the elevation? So, so I tagged the glass on the units. So, I think you're asking that maybe because when I went to the elevation info, I filtered for the elevation as well, but it's just on the units. So I can pull up a unit here. So I have the units and the glass all here. So I can go in here, stretch the tags, and make the adjustment to the byte as necessary for the shop drawings. And I'll go ahead and UPD and run it out as such. Okay, and then I'll just keep going through. Hopefully that answers your question, Jana. I'll just keep going through the details here. So we have a 90-degree corner, and that's basically it. Let's see, is there any other questions or any other suggestions?
One of the other things to point out about the set of details is we did develop the visual mock-up details that can handle a strip window or a curtain wall. So we have different series of details even in the visual mock-up. And a lot of them are using very similar parts. We wanted to limit how many parts we needed to stock to be able to accommodate it. So far it's been working out very effectively. And like I pointed out, there's Swiss on that whole process, including how do we restock if we're running low on materials on the floor in the Laverne shop as well. Another question on the chat.
So you are making UAD right away, even if you just doing takeoffs? Yeah. So I'll make the unit assembly drawing and get the glass ready, and then go ahead and work on the metal, and then work on the fab. So when I send everything out for, I send everything out for checking basically at one time. So the PC that's checking the mockup is checking glass, metal cut sizes, and the fabs at the same time. They're not doing everything in little parts and pieces.
So Edgar, can you talk about the scheduling duration, the visual mockups compared to performance mockups?
Yeah, of course. So I believe we have a window for 2 weeks for a visual mockup, and 3 for a performance mockup, which we'll try to reach. And like you said, I think you mentioned earlier, mockups come in all different sizes. There's Google Gibraltar that had 2 units, but there's also other mockups I've worked on that have up to 12, and we do our best to try to reach that time frame.
And that 2 week for visual mockup and 3 week for performance mockup, that incorporates all aspects of it. So basically it's starting from scratch and releasing everything, and it's ready to go to the shop floor at that point. So we have either that 2 or 3 week window to be able to accommodate the entire scope of the mockup in that time frame.
Exactly.
All right, and no additional items up on the chat, but feel free to unmute your microphones and chime in. Any additional questions?
So can we go back to the stock links being ordered?
Yeah.
Because we've been seeing varying lengths, and Bill, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we wanted it to be a standard of it's always 24 foot, regardless if it would be like a custom visual mockup or a performance mockup.
I don't remember if we had stated that in our visual mockup Swiss, and unfortunately we never finalized the performance mockup and created a Swiss for it. So I don't know if we've got that as the guideline. So one of the ones that Edgar pointed out was that he had kind of a hybrid where the main system was built out of the visual mockup, but there were some job specific parts that they wanted to incorporate, so they included those in there as well. So I don't know if we've actually made that as a specific guideline. So that would be a good one that we should do. In fact, our mockup team hasn't even had a PDCA meeting. It's been 6 months or more. So that's probably a good one that we should just revisit.
Yeah, I thought that point was listed, or it was listed somewhere. I thought it was on the portal or something. I'm sorry, the wiki, but I'll try to dig into that.
Okay. And then Jose had one on the chat.
Okay.
Well, let me ask the question. I just cutting off. It's not really complete. My question only is on the PMU. We also submit that for engineering calculations first before we build and test it, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
By the time the shop drawings get released to the Takeoff group, they should be at the point where we can do all of our takeoffs, fabs, and releases all in that 3 week window without having to worry about waiting for the calcs to come in and am I going to have a different kind of bracket occurring here. So those parts of the process need to be done before it gets handed off to us. And that's why we advocated for getting them put into the matrix so that we really knew what that window was for the takeoffs to occur. All right, any additional questions for Edgar? Or me, or Heather, or Tony?
My presentation. So actually, Bill, you just mentioned it, you know, the mockup is under the matrix right now. You guys add the mockup. Do we know which shop? Do we add it to the shop production or no?
I don't know. Is Pete on? He might be able to answer that.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, because I'm still hunting down that kind of, you know, that part over there. Sometime we will fabricate a visual mockup here in Fremont, but most of the time we will do it in LA. Performance mockup, of course, you know, it depends on which, you know, project it's gonna be, right? If it's an LA job, usually it happen in LA, but I still don't get a, you know, destination for the mockup where it's gonna fabricate it at. And I have to go back to the PM or talk to the shop foreman and kind of like get the idea where it's gonna fabricate it.
So visual mockups are always supposed to be coming out of Laverne, as long as it's a, you know, using our inventory. If it's a custom job specific mockup, you know, like Google was, that would be fabricated at the shop where the job's going to be fabricated at. STC mockups can vary, but performance mockups should also be fabricated out of the shop that the job's going to be fabricated. So at what point in time do you need to know that, Tony?
Most of the time is like, well, after, you know, the visual mockup and the performance mockup release, I just want to know the day so I can set in, you know, I mean, I can put it into my schedule, set a time for it. But we had a couple of jobs that we fabric, you know, I program it for the LA shop, but actually ends up in here in Fremont. But lately, you know, the shop foreman will find it out for me.
Okay, and then Yana's asking, what is the STC and the UL mockups? Those are terms that we don't hear bandied about too often.
So I know UL is a certain typical a certain certification that we give our systems, but I'm not too familiar with the reason of what the
STC is the one that came up recently was on Blake's project. It's that sound rating for the glass. So for example, if you have that building that's next to the it's on the freeway next to the airport, they need a higher sound dampening glass in order to be able to keep that environment workable when it's next to a high noise area. So you'll notice that the buildings that are down by the San Jose airport, the side that's facing the airport probably has to have that STC rated glass. We had the similar thing on the Exchange where it's right on the freeway on one side. So all of that had to have that higher rating for the glass. So that in this particular case, that STC mockup that they did was to be able to actually put the glass into our system to be able to test that sound rating on the system.
And STC stands for sound transmission control.
And UL is the underwriter's laboratory, I think.
Yep.
Okay, any additional questions? All right, very good. Thank you very much, Edgar.
Thank
I'm
you
going to
guys.
stop the recording here.
Thanks, Edgar.
Thanks, Edgar.